Ever find yourself waiting endlessly at a big box pharmacy, feeling like just another number? At Tablet Pharmacy, they provide the personalized service you deserve. They offer free delivery and blister packaging options to make managing your medications easier than ever. Check their competitive prices online at tabletpharmacy.ca.
Peter and Dave, they're on the mics all right. Join the ride, it's gonna feel just right.
Welcome back to the Pulse Community Podcast. I'm Peter McCulley. Summer is rolling in fast here on mid-Vancouver Island. The parks and beaches are busier every day, the patios are packed, and folks are filling up their social calendars.
And I'm Dave Graham. Tell you what, I've been filling up bookings for the spare room at my place. That's the burden those of us who live in paradise must carry as friends and family from afar want to come visit this little chunk of beautiful British Columbia. But that's beside the point. I've been thinking about cars lately. Not from a mechanical sense so much. I wouldn't know a carburetor from a colander. But in the sense, really, that a great car is a piece of rolling sculpture, moving art, history with a steering wheel.
Well, Dave, that's a very poetic take on a vehicle.
Well, Peter, I had some time to think about it while stuck behind a Buick LeSabre that was doing, 40 and a 60. Lovely car, though. Lovely, slow car. Lots of chrome and expanses of sheet metal that were added not for practical purposes, I realized, but merely for design. And that's where the moment turned, and I found my inner peace.
You found your inner peace behind a Buick LeSabre?
Well, it was either that or road rage, and I chose growth, and that leads us nicely into one of the summer's milestone events, the Parksville Car and Bike Show.
The show is back, revived, rebranded, and rolling into Parksville Community Park on July the 5th. Classics, customs, motorcycles, imports, and everything in between. Ron Thorogood, one of the key organizers of the show, is with us today on the podcast to tell us all about this community event.
It has nothing to do with a car. So when I drag raced, sure, the cars are there and all that. The people and the family in that community of the drag racing community are awesome. That doesn't change when you come to Parksville and you look at the car community. Sure, the cars are there and it's great and all that stuff, but really what's behind the car is the people. The whole community of people, I think, is what drives me. The cars are great too, but that's secondary, I think.
And the Pulse Community Podcast is going to be there. We're going to be at the show asking another round of questions of passers-by. We will, in essence, be taking the community's pulse, and we'll be available also for pictures and autographs.
Don't get your hopes up there, Dave. Later in the show, Ethan Askey, singer, songwriter, and harmonica player, will be joining us. Ethan leads Ethan Askey and the Elevators, whose new album, Outside the Lines, is now out. He'll be playing gigs across the island, including the Parksville Museum Concert Series.
I was in a meeting a few years ago with a guy who looked at me twice, and then a third time and said to me, hang on a second here. Did you used to be a river guide? And I said, I did. And you played harmonica? I said, I did, because I still remember you playing a crazy-ass gypsy version of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony around a campfire on the bank of the Elsick River, right near where I got that fish for Junior Wells. He still remembered that 30 years later. It's a thing. Everywhere I go, I got a harmonica in my pocket.
Traveling with a harmonica always in his pocket. There's a certain romance to that, isn't there? In fact, I think that could be the start of a song. A song about a lone musician traveling from town to town, bringing joy to others through music and song. Ooh, this is rich. I better get started on the lyrics while the idea is still fresh. Hey, Peter, what rhymes with harmonica?
Good luck with that, Dave. Also coming up on the podcast, watch for the new addition to the Pulse community. It's a show about movies. Too Old or Movie Gold, hosted by Olin Vanderleen from the Comox Valley, takes a panel of Gen X, Millennial, and Gen Z voices and asks the big question, how has that movie stood the test of time? Does it still hold up? The first episode features Ron Howard's action classic Backdraft, and joining the panel are volunteer firefighters Caitlin and Trevor Holm of the Nanoose Bay Fire Department. They come from a 3-generation firefighting family, just like the brothers in the film.
Oh, that's a nice touch, reflecting the film that way, and to have commentary coming from experts. Too Old or Movie Gold is a welcome new addition to the Pulse family, and I might add, of all the movies made about fire and firefighting, Backdraft has to be among the finest, and that is certainly due in part to the fabulously sinister character brought to life by the late great Canadian actor Donald Sutherland. But as for technical accuracy, well, if you listen in, you'll hear the experts have some issues.
On an upcoming podcast, we'll be chatting with Port Alberni's Laura Palmer on the Island Crime Podcast as Season 9 has been released.
And we will learn about what to expect at one of the island's favorite summer events, as Cheryl Dill will be here to tell us all about the Parksville Beach Festival. It kicks off with the sand sculpting competition that opens to the public on Friday, July 10th. I'll see you there. I'll be the guy over in the corner playing music.
Also coming to the podcast, we'll chat with Doug Picard about the value of exercise in battling Parkinson's, an important and positive conversation.
At Thrifty Foods, we love to help nonprofits, charities, and schools. Our Thrifty Foods Smile Card bulk program allows organizations to immediately save up to 6% on the purchase of Smile Cards in bulk, allowing you to keep more money in your organization's pockets. Ask for details at Thrifty Foods in Parksville.
Ian Lindsay of Lindsay and Associates has played an active role in the local community since 1979. He has been with RE/MAX, Vancouver Island's most advanced real estate business network, since 1996, marketing and selling residential, rural, strata, recreational, investment, and project development real estate. Ian has received several awards recognizing his exceptional community commitment locally, as well as awards for outstanding performance and achievement from both RE/MAX International and the Vancouver Island Real Estate Board. You'll find true real estate professionals at ianlindsay.ca.
Stay tuned to the podcast and our website and social pages for our upcoming giveaways. So we have a summer of them planned. For that matter, if you haven't already done so, I encourage you to enter our April Wine Super Duper Prize Package Giveaway Extravaganza. Oh, that was too much, wasn't it? I get excited about these things. Here's your chance to see Canadian rock royalty in action.
The April Wine Prize Package includes tickets for two folding camp chairs, and a $100 Thrifty Food Smile Card. We'll make the draw June 11th and be watching for contests for Beach Fest Rocks and Blue Rodeo. Head to thepulsecommunity.ca or our Facebook or Instagram pages for details.
We have world-class entertainment coming to the world-class outdoor theater. How fortunate are we? Who else has these kinds of events in this kind of facility by the ocean? Nobody. And who else has Blue Rodeo tickets? Actually, I'm not so sure about that, but we have a pair for their sold-out show, so stay tuned.
It is going to be a memorable summer. Let's get our first guest up to the microphone. Here's Marilyn.
Ron Thorogood is one of the organizers of the Parksville Car and Bike Show, the revived, rebranded Van Isle Show and Shine. The show will open the doors to classics, customs, motorcycles, imports, and everything in between. Scheduled for July 5th at the Parksville Community Park.
Ron, it is a pleasure to meet you. I'm really glad that you could join us today to talk about the car show. We're always happy to talk about cars and more, apparently. We'll be getting to that. But anyway, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you very much for having us, Dave. That's greatly appreciated.
What was once known as the Van Isle Show and Shine is now known as the Parksville Car and Bike Show. How would you care to talk about the evolution of this event?
Well, that's a great place to start because there is so much history of the car show in Parksville, and the venue is amazing. The community park, come on. There is no other place on Vancouver Island, I don't think, that you see a car show and a beach like that together. The car show happened a long time before I came to the island. I have a poster here. It was such an amazing event that in 2004, you can see on this poster that they were offering window tags to the first 850 cars. So I talked to a couple of the people that were actually at the show yesterday. Bob, Clay, and Fred parked those cars. There was 1,000 cars there on the beach. Can you imagine? We have a person in our organizing group that was young then. And back in 1990 is when that whole thing started. It went to about 2006 maybe, and then it got so big, the people at the Ocean Idlers got burnt out. It was paused for a few years, and then the Shriners actually took it over. And that's where the Van Isle show started, and it was always the August long weekend. COVID happened. And unfortunately, they couldn't have any show during that whole period. And the Shriners decided that they just couldn't do it anymore. They sent out a letter to everybody, and I saw that letter. Back in 24, I got a little group of folks together. I actually wanted the Ocean Idlers, the local car club, to take it back again. But they do a show up in Coombs, and they were happy with that. And so if we didn't put a little group together, then the show would have never come back. In 24, on July the 7th, we had our first go at it, and it was amazing. Then last year in 25, the Beach Fest actually moved the sandcastle competition over to the green area where we have the car show, and it was all under construction, so we couldn't have the car show there. This summer, we went back again, and Mayor O'Brien, like he's a car guy, has a Corvette, and he thought that this event, and along with a lot of other people, the car people, the whole community here, just loves the venue. So we developed a template for an annual car show now. So now it isn't just this year or that it's going to happen. It's going to be all the years afterwards, I'm hoping. That's the history of the show.
The show is capped to 200 vehicles. And is that a benefit or otherwise?
Because of the sandcastle competition area, we can't really park cars in the sand. So that took out a chunk of real estate for the show. At our last show, we think that we had over 400 cars. At this show, we are not sure of the area and how it will all work. So what we didn't want to do was have somebody pay for the show and then not be able to find a parking spot. So we said, okay, let's put a limit on what we'll sell for pre-registration of 200. We think there's going to be 300 cars there because on the day of the show, we're going to have a separate line for the people that haven't registered. We're going to fit them in as we have room. So the place will be packed, guaranteed. In fact, we only have 30 registrations left as of this morning to sell. So there's already 170 cars signed up.
And bikes and...
It's open to anybody. We have the Port Club, you name it, are going to be there. So you'll see a variety of different vehicles.
You have teamed up and made several partnerships to make this event go, one being the Macmillan Arts Center. I'm wondering how that works.
Well, that's a really good question. We have a couple of awesome partners. One is the Downtown Business Association with Teresa Cooper. Teresa Cooper introduced me to Jennifer Bate at the Macmillan Arts Center. I was involved with Jennifer and Teresa for the Amazing Art Race. I don't know if you've heard of that, but we had a few cars there and the artists. But that's coming up again.
I was MC at that. Well, now I know why you're familiar.
Oh, there you go. So in any case, that's coming up. So that's how we all got started. Now, what these two people bring to the show is tons of ideas and enthusiasm. I tell you, when you sit down with them, like I'm sure you have, their energy levels are way above what I could ever do. What Macmillan has brought to us is that they're helping us with all the registrations. It costs $25 to register your show car. They're doing all the registration for us. They're keeping track of all of the funds coming in. They're helping us with keeping the accounting and doing the invoicing for all of our sponsors. It's amazing what they're doing. The Downtown Business Association is also doing an event for the show, a meet and greet on the Saturday evening.
I want to talk about how the weekend is going to progress, but I want to touch first also on another partnership, Evergreen Hospitality Group, offering hotels with discounts to attendees. That's a nice little bonus.
I know. Storm Jesperson put together a package for a discount on hotel pack on his 4 hotels here. The one is the Sea Edge Beachfront Hotel, the Tides In and Out, the 2 separate ones. Of course, the coast here in Parksville. So the only thing is that evidently I've been told that's the busiest weekend of the entire year. So even getting a room, I think, is a good thing. We're happy to have them on board with that.
Let's, if we can, talk a little bit about how the weekend will proceed, starting with what?
It's actually going to be a full weekend. Vancouver Island Pharaohs. On Vancouver Island, they have a south chapter and a northern chapter. And Dan from the northern chapter is planning to do a cruise that's going to start at Canadian Tire. That's in the works. And then on Saturday, we're going to do our meet and greet. So all of the cars registered for the show can come down. We're going to have some food trucks. We're going to have a fellow there that is actually going to make T-shirts for you. And we have a great deal where you can get a Parksville Car Show T-shirt made with a picture of your own very car on it. So that's really cool. And all of that's going to be happening down there. Music, we're going to have a couple of food trucks and all that kind of stuff. And all of that information is coming out. We're going to give you all the details. The public's welcome to join us, or anybody that isn't even connected with the car show can come down and see us that night. And then, of course, on the Sunday is the big show. We have 8 people in our organizing group, a fabulous team. And then there'll be about 30 people show up for 5 o'clock in the morning. We'll get off to an early start. The actual car show starts at about 9 a.m. It goes to 2:30.
There's no charge for people to see this. So why is that an important feature?
This is a community event. We want to keep it that way. This is our mission statement that we put forward. And if I could just read it to you, it kind of captures this whole thing. We say, powered by volunteers and community spirit, the Parksville Car and Bike Show celebrates Vancouver Island's car culture with a fun, safe, well-organized annual event that brings energy to the Parksville summer and builds lasting relationships with everyone who helps bring it to life. That kind of encapsulates why we're actually doing this. All of these volunteers have the same thought. We want to bring an event to a fabulous venue for the public to enjoy. We want to make sure that they can get there and bring their families and have a nice, relaxing time and enjoy the whole process.
A lot of car shows end up with trophies and awards and things. Yours will not. How come?
It almost appears to me that when you do a competition of a car show, it brings a different vibe to it. And there's a little bit more tension. Everybody is looking for the judges and making sure their car and this and that. And what we wanted was a car show where people can bring their cars, sit down with their friends, not worry about where the judges are or all of that kind of stuff. And in our first show, we did that, and we sent out a survey afterwards. And that's really one of the things that people responded to in a very positive way, was that we didn't have judging. So that's why we're not doing it.
So we have good representation for cars and shows in our area with the famous Father's Day Show and Shine. And you mentioned the one out in Coombs, and there's this one. What does that say of this area and people's interest in vehicles, and why the interest in these vehicles?
There is a car culture here, and I just want to tell you a quick story. There's a photographer that goes around and does pictures of all the car shows on Vancouver Island. His name is Dan Teterin. Dan does this on his own, shows up at everyone. There's a group of car enthusiasts on Vancouver Island that bought a car, Dan's dream car, a year ago. They took it all apart, they put it all back together, and they presented it to him at the KMS Wednesday night show in Nanaimo last night. People with their cars from Campbell River to Victoria showed up. I'll bet you there was 1,000 people there last night. There was so many cars, the parking lot was overwhelmed in the first 5 minutes. You can check it out on Facebook. My phone is lighting up today about all the pictures that he's posted, and it's called Vancouver Island Hot Rods. Google that and check it out, or go on our website and you'll find some of that. But what a fantastic car culture here. I've never seen anything like it before. I know we don't need another car show. Like you mentioned, there's 3 or 4 in the area already. But look at the venue. Look at the history. People want this. I was looking at the registration of the 172 cars that are already registered. There is people from Prince George coming. There is people from the Lower Mainland coming. There must be 30 cars from Victoria coming. Campbell River, Port Alberni, you name it. It's amazing. And that's what gets us excited about doing it.
You wouldn't be involved, I'm guessing, were you not a car guy? And do you have a car, multiple cars? Do you have a favorite? Something in the show?
I'm not putting my car in the show. And the reason for that is because I'm going to be there at 4:30 a.m. with all of our other volunteers setting up and working that day. I do have favorite cars. I owned a 1970 Plymouth Duster 340 that I drag raced. I owned the car for 50 years. I bought it in 72 when I was a kid, just coming out of school. And I sold it recently when we moved out here. I sold it in 22 and I bought a street car because there's no drag racing really on the island. I wanted a street car and I have a 1967 Firebird convertible. It's red with a white top. You won't see it at the show, but you'll see it driving around Parksville all the time. And if you do, give me a wave.
Let's go back perhaps to your beginnings with fascination with the automobile. I'm assuming, what was the spark for you?
I was raised on a farm just east of Edmonton. And when I turned 16, my dad actually bought me a 1959 Pontiac 4-door, the biggest thing you could ever get. Of course, it didn't run, so we had to pull a motor. We did that 6 times because we didn't know that there was numbers on the pistons, and we couldn't get it to turn over. But anyways, we got it. It's actually a funny story. We got it running. From then, I just enjoyed cars, and in 1972, I bought my dream car at the time, which was a 70 Duster. We turned it into a race car, and I got rid of the entire interior and all that stuff. I started drag racing. I did that with that car until my first child came along in 1990. I had to give up the drag racing because I couldn't afford both. The car sat around for about 5 or 6 years. Then we brought it back onto the racetrack with a good friend of mine. The car won back-to-back titles in Calgary in pro in 2000 and 2001, and we had just an amazing time with the car. Jerry was an amazing driver and mechanic, so he did all the work on it. And then I got my kids into junior dragsters. My daughter when she was 10, and my son when he was 8. We did junior dragsters for 12 years, so I got the motorhome, I got the trailer, I got all this stuff. Every single weekend, those kids would drag me out to a racetrack. So that's the story of my life for racing. We moved out. Joanna and I moved out from Calgary out to Vancouver Island about 9 years ago. We started coming out here a little bit before then, and I got into the car scene. A fellow by the name of Jerry Swan got me involved with just going to coffee with the boys, right? I'm a member of the Ocean Idlers. Just a great group of folks, but the car community here just is amazing. And the talent that some of these folks have for building cars is like I've never seen before. I don't have that talent, but there is people out there that they create these cars, and I think it's a work of art.
I can't ask you to speak on behalf of everybody, but what is it about you, that lifelong fascination for the automobile?
It has nothing to do with a car. So when I drag raced, sure, the cars are there and all that. The people and the family in that community of the drag racing community are awesome. That doesn't change when you come to Parksville and you look at the car community. Sure, the cars are there and it's great and all that stuff, but really what's behind the car is the people. The whole community of people, I think, is what drives me. The cars are great too, but That's secondary, I think.
Thanks to Ron Thorogood and all those responsible for reviving the Show by the Bay. The Parksville Summer Dreamin' Car and Bike Show happens Sunday, July 5th at the Community Park, and we're looking forward to taking the Pulse podcast on the road to see you there.
And we welcome your input. We are open to your reaction to our content, as well as your suggestions as to possible future content. Maybe you have a story to tell. Please reach out. Leave us a voice or text message by using the contact link on our website, thepulsecommunity.ca.
That same website has links for all of our podcasts, plus contests, events, and Vancouver Island webcam links.
Oh, super handy resource that, being on an island, can present occasional challenges when it comes to transportation route options, and these webcams let you see what conditions are like before you head out. Some people don't like surprises, especially the kind that land you in a traffic lineup when there's no alternate route and you're not moving and there's no washroom in sight and you have no idea how long it's going to take. Anyway, where were we? Oh, yeah. You can also find the Pulse Community Podcast on Apple, Amazon, iHeart, Spotify, TikTok, and YouTube. Plus, we're on Facebook and Instagram.
There's exciting news for book lovers. Fireside Books in Parksville now has a second location in Port Alberni. The Bookworm. Used books are just $5 or less. The Bookworm on the corner of Redford and Anderson opens 7 days a week from 10 to 5. Building your personal library for less. Fireside Books at 464 Island Highway East in Parksville is a book dragon's dream come true. Browse their extensive collections 7 days a week. Both locations make growing your personal library easier than ever. New and used books and so much more. Order online at firesidebooks.ca and pick up at either location. Details available online. Ask about returning books for a book credit. Fireside Books and The Bookworm. 2 locations, one amazing adventure in browsing.
Ever find yourself waiting endlessly at a big box pharmacy, feeling like just another number? There's a better way. At Tablet Pharmacy, they provide the personalized service you deserve. Check their competitive prices online at tabletpharmacy.ca before you even leave home. They offer free delivery and blister packaging options to make managing your medications easier than ever. With convenient locations in Parksville, Qualicum Beach, and now open in Nanaimo near the Brick, Tablet Pharmacy has been serving Vancouver Island since 2019. Stop being just a prescription number. Experience the Tablet Pharmacy difference today. Visit them online and check their prices at tabletpharmacy.ca.
Dave, something our first guest, Ron Thorogood, said is resonating with me, that for him, it's not really about the cars. It's about the people and the community behind them that mean the most.
I'll admit, I thought his answer would have been about the cars and his lifelong love of the automobile, but really, Ron put his finger on why anything matters. It's the people and their stories and experiences. They add that extra dimension to all things, including vehicles, which may be works of art or amazing technology on wheels, but are otherwise just things. I saw Ron just the other day, for that matter. He said the show is now full. They have all the vehicles they can take, and come July 5th, we will gather to celebrate and appreciate these items and each other's company, and from that recreate stories and memories, and therein lies the magic.
Our next guest has gathered his share of stories from his life as a musician and a guy who's carried a harmonica in his pocket for the better part of 30 years. Here's Marilyn.
Ethan Askey is a singer, songwriter, and harmonica player based in Cranbrook, BC. Known in music circles as Shorty, he spent decades as a sideman and session player before stepping out front with his 2022 debut album, Walk When You Want to Run, which spent over 160 weeks on the Canada Roots and Blues Top 50. He leads Ethan Askey and the Elevators, who have a new album, Outside the Lines.
Welcome to the podcast today, Ethan.
Thank you very much, Peter.
I just finished listening to a number of your tunes, and I have to say, I really enjoy the style of music that you play.
Thank you very much.
I've always been a fan of the blues harmonica. Musicians like Delbert McClinton have always been in my collection. Did the blues find you, or did you find the blues?
I would have to say that I found the blues. I was a teenager who grew up in an era where it was mostly about headbanging. AC/DC, Scorpions, Black Sabbath. That was the jam at the time for me. But I would kind of secretly spend my Sundays at home alone. My older brother had already moved away. I had a killer record collection of his and my dad's at home. And there I found the band and The Last Waltz. I heard Paul Butterfield. I heard Muddy Waters. I heard all these great artists coming together with the band. So I kind of grew up listening to a lot of my dad's kind of more folky and rock music, Gordon Lightfoot, Bruce Cockburn. But the band, there was a whole lot of depth to that music. And then I started digging backwards. And then I found Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee. And I just kept digging back and back. So I uncovered the blues that was kind of buried away. We didn't have a ton of Magic Sam in the house, but I found it eventually.
Now, your dad, I understand, was a bit of a songwriter. How much of what you do now traces back to what he was doing?
Oh, man, I'm a storyteller, and I've had some pretty rich life experiences, so I can trace back to my family a lot of that. But my dad, I think you got that, Peter, from looking at the lyric video that's online on YouTube for Stoners. And there's a little tribute to my dad. The story of Stoners, the song, is that we were watching the news one night, and it was Justin Trudeau saying he was about to legalize marijuana. And I looked at my dad and I said, "How do you feel about that? Do you ever smoke dope?" And one of those frank moments as an adult son and his father. And he said, "No, not my thing." I said, "Really? You had pretty psychedelic tastes." He turned me on to Bob Dylan and Pink Floyd and the band. He goes, "Yeah, not my thing at all." I said, "So what do you think is going to happen when it's legalized?" And he said, "I think stoners will still be stoned." I asked if I could use that line into a song I was working up, and he did me one better, and he gave me 3 verses, and I pretty much incorporated lock, stock, and barrel into the song Stoners. So a non-smoker wrote that tongue-in-cheek, and I just made it a little hipper and added a chorus of music to it. I gave him songwriting credit, of course, on that, but that was the only song he ever wrote. He was all sorts of things, but a songwriter just in his final months of his life.
That's a great story. You spent years as a session player before you stepped out front of the band. What did that time behind the band teach you that you probably couldn't have learned any other way?
It gave me ears, Peter. Some people, if they find a harmonica or a guitar and they like to make a lot of noise with it, that's one way to do it. Because I listened to records, then I listened to bands, then I listened to how I could fit in and serve the song, support the band. I almost consider myself like a rhythm harmonica player, and that I love playing organ parts and horn parts, accenting what's going on in the band, having one of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different roles within a band, not out there just blowing my horn, not just making noise, right? So I learned after years of being on the side of a stage how to serve the song. And only more recently in the past bunch of years that I stepped forward into the center of the stage to sing and to play more solos and to take that role. As a musician, I feel pretty humble about it because I learned from wonderful players and paid my dues and came up through the ranks. As you say, I had a very long apprenticeship as a harmonica player.
And I understand you've done session work in genres that are as part as progressive metal and Celtic punk funk. I'm not even sure what that is. What does the harmonica bring to those genres where it has absolutely no business being?
Oh, geez, I don't know if I agree with you on that last statement. It has every bit of business being there because it's an instrument. It's a full-fledged instrument. In the hands of a skilled practitioner, it makes all sorts of sounds. I can play fully chromatically in all styles of music. When I travel the world and I've been to Cuba, I jam in with salsa players. I go to Czech Republic and I jam in with jazzers. Once you figure out this mysterious little instrument, there's a lot of music in there, and you carry a bunch of them, so you have all the keys available to you and you play modally. It is a wonderful instrument that lends itself really well for the metal. You referred to the progressive metal thing. There were a band that said to me, "Hey, we're doing this thing that talks about going to the crossroads, but instead of doing the usual trope of a guitar player at the crossroads like Robert Johnson, we just heard a devil singing and maybe through a harmonica." And I said, "Say no more. I can scream through a harmonica like the devil." Celtic punk music is almost ska punk. The Honeymans made years ago, and they've reformed, and they're friends of mine in Kimberley. I'm sitting in the studio right now talking to you in the studio of the Honeymans, the ska punk band, and they're the rhythm section for our band. So there's a fine line between blues and funk and country and even punk, you might say. It's all rock and roll, baby.
Maybe there's no lines.
our new album is called Outside the Lines. I like to say that our band, people sometimes call us a contemporary blues band or a rock and roll band or a roots band. I say, exactly, we're all those. We color outside the lines.
Now, a friend of mine is a harmonica player, and one day he showed me his collection. It was in this really nice little case. I thought he was bringing out some kind of a wind instrument. He opened the case, and lo and behold, there was like 14 or 16 different harmonicas in there, different sizes, different makes. Do you have quite a collection?
I do. I've got more than I can count. I've got literally over 100 harmonicas, many dozen, and a lot of them are just in the boneyard. They're out of tune. You can do open harp surgery and take them apart and file them down and clean them up and do bits of corrective work to them. But eventually, you know, the metal, the brass reeds inside, they fatigue. They have to be replaced, or you buy a new harmonica. So I've got a bunch that are sitting around for a skilled technician to bring them back to life. When I play on stage, and hope you can come to one of our shows, Peter, when we're on the island, I wear a belt of 14 harmonicas, and that gives me most of what I need for most shows. When I go to a jam, I might even put a couple more in my pockets. And I also play the chromatic harmonica, which are bigger with more notes and a little slide, a little button on them. Stevie Wonder played a chromatic. Toots Thielemans and so many wonderful jazz predominant players play chromatic. And that gives you a whole lot more. It gives you a lot of the extra color and scales available to you. So yeah, you need a bunch to play different keys, different styles.
Interesting. The album Walk When You Run has been out on the top 50 Canada Roots and Blues chart for 3 or 4 years. And that album was built around a visit that you made to Junior Wells' home on the south side of Chicago. There sounds like a story there.
The album title track, Walk When You Want to Run, it tells the story. So I would direct your listeners to that, because I told that story so many times, and I finally realized I've got to commit this to song because it is song worthy. But in a nutshell, I met Junior Wells as this young player. It wasn't him on the band's album, but as I was digging deep back into the blues, I kept coming across Junior Wells and Buddy Guy. I love those guys. And lo and behold, Junior Wells was coming to Calgary. I grew up in Cranbrook, where I'm based once again after a long circuitous journey through life. I've come back home to Cranbrook. It was only a 4-hour drive. So I went to the King Eddie, home of the blues in Calgary, and I caught Junior Wells' show. And during the show, in between his sets, I was tapping my toes and trying to show my friends what I could do on the harmonica that kind of approximated his riffs. And he came up to me and said, "That sounds good, but give it a little more soul and do this and do that." And he laughed, and he gave me his phone number and his address. He said, "You ever come to Chicago, you call me." And I did years later. Of course, he wouldn't remember me, but I told him, "Hey, you were playing in Calgary. You gave me a number." He said, "Great. Are you here in town for a while?" I said, "I'm there Friday night." He put me on the guest list. We formed this relationship. I brought him a gift box of fish from the airport, a little decorative cedar box, hand-painted with a quackudal design on it, with 4 ounces of smoked salmon. And he took that home to his mom, who lived with him. He took that home to her Saturday. She spent the day picking it apart, tasting it, drinking a pot of coffee, loving this fish. And he told me the next night at Buddy Guy's Legends Bar, I played every night I was there. It was wonderful. I was so grateful to him. He told me how much his mom had enjoyed that fish, and I pledged to bring another fish to him next year because I was down there on business. I was an expedition river guide working up in the Arctic and in the Alaska and Yukon. And so we ended our trips on the Tatshenshini-Alsek rivers at Dry Bay, Alaska. It's a fish processing plant before flying back to Whitehorse. So I bought one of their big fish, big spring salmon, and I took it down next February to the Adventure Travel Trade Show, where we sold our river trips to Chicago area folks. And I took this fish. The story unfolds in the song, but basically I had to walk that fish through deep south side to his house to deliver her the fish because he was off on tour. So the song begins with, she said to me, "You're a white man, aren't you?" I said, "I am." She says, "You're bringing me a fish." "I am." "You take a taxi here." I can see a train goes right there. I didn't take her advice. I took the train, being a cheap young fella and more bush smart than street smart. And I had to walk those 4 blocks of deep south side with a fish under my arm with guys calling out at me. And I had no business being there. So it was a real lesson and a song.
And a great story.
Listen to the song, please. It's a lot of fun. Every word's true. 3 quarters in the truth.
And then halfway through that story, I got a picture of Ethan Askey whipping out a harmonica around the campfire.
Well, it's funny enough. I was in a meeting a few years ago with a guy who looked at me twice and then a third time and said to me, hang on a second here. Did you used to be a river guide? And I said, I did. And you played harmonica? I said, I did, because I still remember you playing a crazy-ass gypsy version of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony around a campfire on the bank of the Alsek River, right near where I got that fish for Junior Wells. He still remembered that 30 years later. It's a thing. Everywhere I go, I got a harmonica in my pocket.
That's the kind of impression you want to leave with somebody, that's for sure. Now, you've got a new album on the way, Ethan, featuring Susie Vinnick, Jimmy Bowskill, Steve Mariner. How did those collaborations come together?
The album does feature the contributions of Susie Vinnick and Steve Mariner. We were in Jimmy Bowskill's studio. In fact, Jim Bowskill and Steve Mariner were all over the first album I released a few years ago, and that started as a COVID, the Great Pause project. So I chose Steve to do a remote recording, and we started that project, and he and Jimmy laid down some tracks behind me in their Ganaraska recording company in Cobourg, Ontario. The restrictions eased in 2021. Steve was able to tour again, so when he was out in Calgary next, we built out the album in a Calgary studio of a bandmate of mine and invited my Calgary community of friends in on that album. So it was a cast of thousands on the first album. But this album is all my band, The Elevators. That's Keith and Ben and Mike. Wonderful music, but we chose to add some guest vocalists, Susie Vinnick. Recording this album mostly here in Kimberley at Ray's Music, we then took some of the tracks and added additional tracks. Keith and I, the guitarist and co-writer with me, we went out to Ganaraska Recording Company, Jimmy Bowskill Studio with Steve Mariner, and Steve couldn't resist adding a few tasty bits and pieces, some keyboards and some baritone guitar to a couple tracks, Susie's voice, and my dear friend Jared Sowen. Jared and I had toured in Europe and around Western Canada together for a couple of years. He's on the album too. So it's mostly the Elevators with a couple of special guests.
Now, you mentioned Europe. You've headlined the Baltic Blues Festival in Germany and toured Europe with Jimmy and the Sleepers. What does a Canadian blues band find when it plays for a European audience?
We did 2 tours over there in 2023 and 2024. Played some festivals. We opened for Robert Cray for the Baden Blues Fest in Switzerland. We were the headliner for the Baltic Blues, as you mentioned, up in the Baltic Sea. Susie Vinnick, in fact, was the opening solo act for that, and then the rest were Northern Europeans playing on that bill in 2024, Baltic Blues. It was a wonderful thing. It's pretty special being on a stage to a few thousand people in this ancient village in northern Germany or in Switzerland. They're really appreciative of the blues there, and I think that dates back to 1964 and those folk blues tours that Sonny Boy Williamson and Howlin' Wolf and those folks did. That's what brought the American music back over to Britain. You know, the Stones and the Who and the Yardbirds, they all soaked that stuff up. Eric Clapton, they all just drank that up. Europe has been a stronghold for blues and roots music ever since then. And so when we go over there, maybe if we went over there this year with all the politics going on right now, the fact that we're a Canadian band playing so-called American music, blues music, might be even more popular than an American band playing that American music. We were well received. They loved the deep blues that we played there.
Now, you're going to be on the island in July, and I know you're a repeat instructor at the Hornby Island Blues Workshops. What do you try to give players who are a lot earlier in the journey musically than you are?
At Hornby Island Blues Camp, a wonderful thing, this is our 27th year, apparently, and I've been there twice now, and they try and mix it up and have 12 instructors typically, and they teach drums, keyboards, guitar, bass, vocals, songwriting, and harmonica. So I was the harmonica instructor twice, and all sorts of wonderful players, mostly Juno Award winners, the top of their game people are the instructors. There's a real community that's grown up around that. A lot of people come every year. They don't want to miss it. And they're very advanced players. You get a few beginners that come, or for example, you get a great guitarist who also wants to play rack harp and learn a bit of harmonica. So in my classes, I had folks who were beginners, a lot of intermediates, and a few advanced players. What I offer them, especially for the beginners, is I try and demystify the instrument, because a lot of folks, they've heard Bob Dylan and Neil Young play pretty basic stuff, tasteful for their music. Maybe they're real blues fans and they've heard a bit more, but they want to increase their vocabulary. They want to learn more about the harmonica and play the stuff they hear that now that everything's online, you can hear these crazy players from around the world doing really jazzy or really cool stuff, and it's ever expanding. So I try and give them tools to expand their vocabulary, to realize that inside that little instrument, there's more than they're doing now. There's almost infinite possibilities of things they can do. Not that I'm capable of all those possibilities, but like you said, I'm a little more advanced in the journey than they. I also coach them on things like playing rhythm harmonica, playing tastefully behind things, not over top of everything. We jam, we listen hard, we play softly, we take turns. There's a lot of etiquette involved in playing music, especially when you're a lead instrument. You've really got to shut up sometimes. That's part of it too. It's all about the notes you don't play.
Climbing up the porch of a shotgun shack. Pretty yellow dress with an open back. Long coffee legs like a welcome mat. I wish my porch had a swing like that. I wish my porch had a swing like that. Mississippi wedding in the month of July. Cotton lay low, but the dress run high. Grinning at the bride like an old tomcat. I wish my porch had a swing like that. I wish my porch had a swing like that. Little things in life I got. Cool summer breeze when the day is hot. Me, I like a whiskey and a wide-brimmed hat. Dreaming about a girl with a swing like that. I wish my porch had a swing like that. Dreaming about a girl with a swing like that. I've been dreaming about a girl with a swing like that. Oh, I married that girl with a swing like that.
Ethan Askey in the Elevators, Swing Like That. Ethan, before you go, we've got a speed round of questions if you're up for it.
Okay, let's do it.
Harmonica, harp, or tin sandwich? Which word do you use?
Blues harp. It's a blues harp, for sure.
The song that made you want to play blues in the first place?
It's a toss-up. The battle is over, but the war goes on. Sonny Terry and Brownie McGhee, that whole album galvanized it for me. Around the same time, I told you I was a bit of a rocker. I remember hearing Blackfoot, that southern rock band, play Train, Train. And DeFord Bailey, who was active from the 20s to the 70s, one of the earliest harp players, he played a really cool intro to that. And then they'd rock it up. So that crossover from deep old blues to rock and roll, Blackfoot, Train. Check that one out.
I will. Best city in Canada to play a blues show?
I'm biased because I'm a product of the Calgary blues community. I've played music all across the country. Toronto probably has the most opportunity to play. I've had some great shows in Halifax, some wonderful players there, but Calgary's my go-to.
The one artist that you drop everything to open for if you had the chance?
Call me Buddy Guy because he figures so much in my own mythology. I've had the great blessing to open for John Mayall and for Robert Cray in my past. But Buddy Guy said he's doing one more tour, and he asked me to be involved, which he never would. I'd love to do that because Junior Wells was his partner.
Your go-to road food order that you've never second-guessed?
Oh, it'd probably have to be A&W coffee and breakfast sandwich. You can't get too far wrong. Maybe even the teen burger for breakfast. I don't know.
Best thing about living in the Kootenays?
Oh, the outdoor opportunity. I'm an active individual. I'm out in the woods all the time doing fun stuff.
The song on the album, Walk When You Want to Run, that you're most proud of?
That would probably be Stoners, the opening track on it, not the title track. I love so many of the songs on that album. They're all born from personal experience, aside from one or two from friends and one cover from Tom Waits. But Stoners, because my dad and I co-wrote that together, and it turned out great with Jimmy Boskill on guitar.
The most underrated Canadian blues musician right now?
In a U.S. global context, maybe Steve Mariner. He's won all sorts of Juno Awards. He's recognized in Canada, and he's played some blues cruises to an international audience. But I would say there's almost nobody better or more versatile than Steve Mariner anywhere in the world.
Something people always get wrong about the harmonica.
People think that because you can just open up and blow on it and make sounds, that it's a toy, that's not a hard instrument. But there's a world, a lifetime of learning inside that thing. It is a bona fide instrument.
The one place that you haven't played yet that you need to, you absolutely need to.
Maybe Calgary Folk Fest, surprisingly. I have a real folky roots side to me, and I love the way they put on that festival. So one day, an objective for me is to play the Calgary Folk Fest.
The last song that stopped you cold when you heard it?
There's an artist in Bragg Creek, an up-and-comer named Leanne Lightfoot, and she's got a new album out. The song that opens the album is Unsettled, and it locks. She's got a guitarist and a bassist, and her voice, it all just really works. It moves me. It floored me. It's on speed dial, man. I listened to that thing over and over again. Unsettled by Leanne Lightfoot.
Ethan, after 3+ decades of playing, your session work, sideman, band leader, instructor, what does the music still do for you that absolutely nothing else does?
It moves me on a body and mind level. It's like a really good stone. I kind of like to leave the booze and the drugs in the past as I get more mature. Those things don't last. Those things are impermanent. They're transitory. They're incomplete. They're not real. Music is real, made by real people. I'm not at all into AI-generated stuff. Songs that move me, the lyrics, they stir my mind. The harmony vocals and the instrumentation, like Leanne's song with the bass and guitar interplay supporting the song, they give you the physical and chemical feel. So it is a complete package. It is the drug of all drugs for me.
Our thanks to Ethan Askey for joining the podcast and sharing stories and inspiring me to put a harmonica in my pocket. Well, metaphorically speaking, I already have a wallet in my pocket and it's really lumpy. A harmonica would be problematic, but I love the thought of having an instrument always at hand and being able to blast out a tune anytime, anywhere. Hey, getting pulled over by the police? Get out your harmonica. Play your way out of a ticket. Want to diffuse an argument? Put your instrument to work and bring peace to the moment at hand. The world would be a better place if we all had harmonicas.
Well, that's a thought, Dave. We encourage you to reach out to us if you have something to share, perhaps some feedback or a tip on a story. Go to our website and click on the contact link. You'll also find our Pulse Community Podcast archives and updates on contests and events.
You'll also find our Skookum Kid Stories with Peter and Gracie, the Eskimo dog, and the Mellow Submarine with Captain Dave and his first mate and best pal, Larry the Lobster. Our kid stories now have coloring pages to go along with each new episode.
In this week's episode, Captain Dave and Larry the Lobster help clean up plastics in French Creek.
I appreciate the message in this episode that reminds us that despite the challenges we face in this modern world, we each can make a difference.
And we invite you to check out our Radio Archaeology Classic Radio series with original episodes of Dragnet featuring Sergeant Joe Friday and Marshal Matt Dillon in Gunsmoke.
We are also pleased to feature the podcast, A Resilience Project, hosted by Cindy Thompson of Parksville. The latest episode has the powerful story of a person diagnosed with high-functioning autism. Santiago Dominguez spent years navigating school and friendships while experiencing a desperate need to feel understood.
You'll find these podcasts and more at thepulsecommunity.ca. While you're there, sign up for our newsletter for all the latest on guests and contests.
Things are shaping up nicely for the summer season. April Wine, Beach Fest Rocks, Blue Rodeo, all coming to Parksville, plus the Car and Bike Show July 5th. And now I'm heading out to go shopping for some overalls.
Okay, I'll bite. Why overalls, Dave?
Well, Peter, I'm glad you asked. Overalls have a pocket up front and center. Perfect for a harmonica. Problem solved. No sitting on harmonicas for me.
Well, that's really great, Dave, but do you even know how to play the harmonica?
Oh, Peter, I'm an artist, a free spirit. I can't have my creative edge dulled by details. Oh, Peter.
Here come Peter, here comes Dave. Oh, listen. Bringing stories, making waves. No missing. Spinning tales in the podcast cave. So sweet. Laughs and insights everywhere. What a treat. Peter and Dave, they're on the mic, so alright. Join the ride, it's gonna feel just right.